me, it goes without saying that bike parks are one of my favourite places on planet Earth, and I'm sure for you guys watching, you would agree. But how many times are you at a bike park and you come across a feature which you don't know how to ride, or maybe you're doing something wrong on it and you just need pointing in the right direction? Well, today I'm going to be breaking down 5 bike park features and hopefully pointing you guys in the right direction. Today we find ourselves at Pheonix Cycle Works, which is a local bike park for us, and we actually was here yesterday, and I noticed there was quite a lot of riders coming over asking for different tips and bits of advice on certain features. I decided this would be a perfect time to make a how-to video, just giving a few pointers on ways of improving on those features. So today we're going to be looking at wall rides, drop-offs, pump bumps, kicker jumps, steep wooden ramps, and gap jumps. 5 quite common features that you would come across at most bike parks, and we're going to be starting off with the wall ride. When I was first introduced to wall rides, I didn't see how it was possible to ride a bike on a wall, but don't freak out because it's not as crazy and as difficult as it seems. Behind me we have got a perfect curved wooden wall ride, and the first thing that you need to do is not think of it as a wall ride. You need to just imagine the wooden bit as an extension of the berm. Don't worry about tipping the bike into any funky angles, and don't overthink the process, because if it was dirt you would 100% just ride straight around it without any questions. The next thing to think about before even attempting it is the speed, and a nice big open one like this, there's no way you can actually go too fast at it. When doing a wall ride, you're trying to create a perfect smooth arc which you ride around, and this all starts at your entry onto the wall. So you need to imagine that this wall is a clock face at 12 o'clock, and depending what way you're approaching the wall from, you want to be attacking it at either 10 or 2. That will give you the perfect entry to not only create that arc, but also give you maximum traction. You've made a perfect entry, you're now in the middle of the wall ride, and this is the point where actually you can just relax. You want to maintain a neutral body position, and all you really need to be doing at this point is looking ahead to your exit and being mindful of where you are on the wall. So don't go too high, you don't want to risk your front wheel coming out the top or anything like that, and you can actually just stay on it and relax. It's quite crazy. Keep your speed up because that is what's going to give you grip. It's now time to exit the wall ride. Now, depending on the setup, sometimes there's a little landing slope to make it to. Obviously if that's there you would have spotted it, and that's where you should be aiming for. But honestly, to come off of it you don't do anything, you just ride down the wall. Wall rides are simple, they're not the hardest trick in the world, but I think it's mind over matter. It's easy to overcomplicate and not understand how it works. If you just try picture it as a berm, then I'm sure that you will achieve some results. This next wall ride we're looking at isn't quite so simple because you can't just roll onto it. It's actually got a gap onto it and a gap off. Now, the core principles of this remain the same, with thinking of it as a berm, looking to create that arc and maintaining your speed. But obviously you do need to be mindful of the jump on and jump off, especially off, because you can't just roll off of this one, you'll end up in a pile on the floor. The first thing that you want to do when hitting something like this is try as best you can to keep it as small as you can. And what I mean by that is, although it is a gap onto it, you can almost create a little roll onto it like what you was doing before. This is important before going too big, because if you have this dialed, then it's really going to help with understanding the curve on the wall and how to go big onto it. Once you're at the point where you're ready to go big onto it, it's time to treat it like a jump. So as you jump on and land, that landing point, you're going to be compressing your knees to absorb the impact, but also that preloads you ready to lift up and jump off towards your landing. The most confusing thing for a lot of people with these gap ones is thinking they need to tilt the bike, which you do a tiny bit, but I want you to try and picture it as a berm once again, and the bit of wood that you're on is the peak of the berm, and the kicker is the entrance of the berm. And basically all you're doing is removing that middle bit where naturally in a berm you're turning and twisting onto it. Instead, you just need to try and make that small adjustment yourself whilst you're in the air. So just try and simplify it with that thought process. Wall rides, they're really not as scary and as daunting as they first seem, and it's such a fun feature to learn how to ride properly. Let's move on to the next one. The next feature we're taking a look at are pump bumps. Now, I would actually imagine these are the most confused feature in a bike park. Now, what I mean by that is you've got 3 tabletop jumps before these double rollers, so you're in a rhythm of jumping. And what people tend to do is get to these and they will try and gap them, which you can do, but their intention and they're best used when you're pumping to generate speed and keep flow for the next jump. I'm about to show you how to use them. And this is how not to use them. Pumping is basically when you push your bike into the ground to help you generate speed on a curve. Now, in a bike park, there's plenty of different places and opportunities to pump and create speed and flow. And it's important to recognize these because, as you could see from those clips, when I didn't use the pump bumps correctly, I cased the jump and completely lost all of my flow. Let's move on to the next feature. The third feature we're going to be taking a look at is the drop-off, which is a scary one for a lot of people. They come in two different types. You've got flat drops like the one behind me, and you've got kicker drops. Let's start things off with flat drops. Now, the little trick that I have to make them seem less scary to me is to tell myself that they're the same in every scenario, which they are. If you compare it to riding a kicker or a ramp, where each ramp and takeoff feels different, a flat drop doesn't have this problem. It feels consistent, and if you can ride off of one 2 foot off the ground, then it's honestly no different to do a huge one that would be 10 feet off the ground. Commitment is key. Don't hesitate when you get towards the end of a drop, because you're probably going to fall off of something quite high, which obviously you don't want to do. Technique for a drop off is quite simple. You're looking to just simply unweight the front wheel. No crazy bunny hops, no jumps before the end of the drop. Just unweight the front wheel and ride off the end of it. Body position wants to remain pretty central on the bike, maybe back ever so slightly with your pedals flat. When it comes to landing, you want to aim to land two wheels together, so matching your bike's angle to the angle of the landing. You can land slightly back wheel, but you never want to land on the front wheel. Absorb the impact with your knees and your elbows, and roll off with probably a lot of speed into a much bigger jump. Taking a quick look at kicker jumps. Now, if you're riding these, you're probably a more advanced rider. So my advice to you would be, if you're struggling, to attack it with confidence. You're probably jumping from quite high up. The ramp's obviously going to send you even higher, and you're probably going to be jumping quite fast, so confidence is key. I would also recommend your first few times to squash the ramp, and what I mean by that is don't pull up. Push down into it, make the jump feel as small as it possibly can. If you're at the level of hitting a kicker drop, then you probably have already learnt that skill. This will just make it feel more comfortable for the first times that you're sending it. Once you then know what it feels like in the setup, you can start pulling up and boosting. And the first one, keep it safe. Number 4, kicker ramps. Now, this one behind me is relatively new at this bike park, and yesterday there were a lot of people asking me, how do I ride this? What am I doing wrong? How do I go higher? And this is my explanation. Before you even hit a kicker ramp like the one behind me, it's important to understand the purpose of a kicker. It's to send you up into the sky, meaning that it's quite a different shape compared to your average bike park jump that you'll come across. The angle that you are when you take off compared to when you're on flat ground is quite a big change, meaning when you're in the ramp and riding up it, there's a lot happening. The main thing being compression, not only from your bike but also in your body. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because this compression can have a huge impact on what happens when you go out of the ramp. So for example, if your body's compressing a lot, that means you're probably not taking off in the correct position to actually be controlled and stable in the air. Alternatively, if your bike is too soft, your tyres and suspension are probably going to either make you take off funny or sapping a lot of energy and speed out the jump, meaning you might even case it. Yesterday when we was here, I was helping a gentleman on the jump, and I told him to show it who's boss, and what I meant by that was to be strong on the bike. A lot of people I noticed who are used to riding flatter ramps aren't ready for the compression and the change of angle, which means they're going up the ramp not really in control and just letting the bike take them. With that sharp change of angle, you need to be strong and you need to really get hold of the bike and show it who's boss. Ideally, you're looking to actually push into the ramp, because this is not only going to help you to show it who's boss and maintain a more consistent position, but it's also going to generate pump, which will send you out the ramp and it will actually boost you quite high. Final thing I want to touch on with kicker ramps is your bike setup. It's important to make sure your bike is run slightly stiffer than you would usually, i.e. your tyre pressures and suspension. This will make the speed more consistent, and it will make the bike more predictable out the lip, because soft bikes and soft tyres just cause a whole load of problems when riding steeper ramps. Number 5, this is the gap jump. Probably the most scary type of feature that you will ride in the bike park. You've worked your way up on the tabletops, and no matter how comfortable you get on the tabletops, by the time you start hitting the gaps, they're always scary. A gap jump is basically a tabletop with the middle section cut out. It becomes scary and gnarly because the danger levels and the consequence goes up. All of a sudden, if you don't clear it or make a mistake, you can land in the middle and have a crash. Now, if you've been practicing on a tabletop and you've got the takeoff, level out and land process dialed in, then you're probably ready to start hitting gap jumps, and the only thing holding you back is your confidence. To build confidence, you need to find out about the jump, which means watching other riders hit it. Take a look at the ramp. What kind of takeoff is it? Is it going to send you up in the air? Is it going to make you go really far forward? And most importantly, work out your speed, because there's nothing worse with a gap jump than obviously casing it, but if you just go full speed to clear the gap, sometimes over clearing can be just as bad. Sometimes it's actually really good to follow riders into it who have ridden it before, because you can match their speed, meaning that there's more of a chance of you getting it right first go. And no matter what level of rider you are or how big or small the jumps are, you can always apply this process to clearing a jump and ticking those boxes, making sure all those factors are right before you're sending it, to increase your chances of landing it first go. There we have it. In my opinion, they are the 5 most common bike park features explained. I hope that in one way or another my advice today has helped you to learn something new. If you want to look into each sort of skill area in more depth, then I'll leave a link to my how-to playlist at the end of this video. I'm sure there's something that will dive more into each skill to help you along the way. Also, let me know which how-tos or which things you're struggling with that you would like to learn next. I'm happy to go out there and make a video. If you enjoyed this one, please give us a thumbs up, leave your comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video.
I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a